E o te toe whaatana whatu i le tātua te noo, i lau mai mō foi, si sila mai mō foi i le nei vaenga, i le tautua a le siu whonga le lau mō mai Samoa i Maimoaga i vaenga e se o le tātua te noo. O na mō motu sia i foi, ia le malanga mai o le tātua te noo mō se teimi, ia umi lava, o na o awhianga lava o le whaama e le COVID-19 wiva. Pe tai o le so, ia le pe o na whaalau i lo foi tātua Polokalame, ia lea la tātou a matatu e le Fale Mataaga ia i nei Vailima o se tasi o fale e iei tala whaasolopito le tātou atunuu o Samoa e lona tūlanga i le tusi tala lau i loa le atunuu ia e peife o na iai le tātou Maimoaga i le aso lua o le vai aso lava le nei i le whai tātou Maimoa mai ai ia i le a ngai i lunga le whangu e lona whanua tanu i lunga le tumutumu o le maunga vaia pe tai o le so ia le la tātou a ngai i le mea sa nofo ia malala i foi ia le sunga le tuistana ia mai mo mai ia o le keite le ulu fale toi te tonu ia i le fale le monta sa alala ma papa au i foi ia le tuistana lau i lo le tātou tunu ia o se whainga na i la au mātungo fio te manatu ia e to tele le wa malo le tunu ia e si le fia foi le telo la au nei mau latu i ngoa pe o tangi ia i tūlanga ese o meo o aute Samoa o launga pāpā so o se ale awala le lo mai mo mai i le ngai te tonu i le lotoa le tātou te whaasala lau atuai e se le mātango fio ia vainga i fōlingo Samoa o na la au whelaunu lanu wai ma le mātango fie e oe ka se mānia te leo manu lele e taunu mai tātou Polokalame le so ia mai i le makete ui i le isavalalo o ti mungo palasi lava ti mungo le temile nei whaatai le tua le lau fia le ua awina mai si masele lea ia le ua whaatau nui nai le tātou Polokalame ia avai atu i lopa o puru vao la au te tele ia masani eilu tātou tunu ia le puru vao ala tau ia whai o le polo kirikiki kirikiti Samoa pou muli ia peona mai mo mai tātou tunu ia se vainga nai te tonu o le lotoa nei po le awala nei a ngai atuai e te tonu le no whanga le tātou te anga iei ia o nisi o malu le tātou tunu e misi lava nei yalom whanau e na o ne tau lava o le fale le tusitala tau ta ua nei Samoa ai le lo lava pe fe mea ngai e te tonu o a fōlingo le lotoa o le fale tūlanga whapena ia vai me le pama le ole nei le anga i te tonu ia a lea la wa tu sa o tu lava e lau ala ata po le leiti o whaasana lau fo le si fonga le lau mua ia wa tu sa o tu lava i le mena e te loka i nātu nu ma ono le whaamai ia e te mai moai whea la le me tu wai ia le mota ia na la o tātou wo mai i ia o le awala la le lotoa ia le wala atatu a manta tuai ia ma le vainga atu na i te tonu o le mota e fai lava si te le o le whanua le nei au le lei mātango fie pe fo ona mai mo mai e le vaiaso te nei ia e le vaiaso le nei le aso lua e le anga i le lunga le mela o lo te waile lona whanua tanu le mātango fio swing fou le wa whaia e si o tātou tuno Samoa mea mō tangata uma lava Samoa e le mō se to tasi tātou uma lava nai swinga le lei le foua i ai le nei vai tau e tātou te whaafitai ai le atua i swinga te tele ma le swinga mātango fie i o nei vaenga ie e tāo fio fi mamau e pia lava ia le vaenga o tala whaasolopito e whaamanatu mai ai i o tātou tua a ua mawai mamalolo mai i tia sā ia le o tātou ua mai i lumo le monta ia se vaenga nai lumo le monta le nei le lautu I ole a sila ole a mawhailo ai male tamaita ia Margaret o ia lea ole a whai loa tu lava lona swafa o ia lea e ngafa male vaingol tātou whale nei nei e Vailima ia onsai mai leo man tau atu foi tau ia leo mai nei ia a matalo foi into e palasi ia wanga ia ole sunga le ia Margaret ia o ia leo tamaita i le whatalo whātu Margaret le tātou le teo al siu fongo le laumua mai Wellington i New Zealand ia o ia lea o lo ia vaaia ia le tātou Fale Mataaga matangofia nei lono am tau taua o lo ia i le tala whaasolopito le tātou tunuu e tele e whaatatau lava le tusi tala lau i loa Samoa ia ai o le atu inatu ia Margaret ia e whaalau i loa i fo ia lona tangata ia mese fo ia lona tupuanga ia malana ngāruenga fo ia ama ngai e loa tātou Maimoaga e vaenga tāu e pe ona fuafuaina le asole nei. Talofa Margaret.
Talofa everyone and warm greetings from Samoa. We're here at the Robert Louis Stevenson Museum. As you have Tasesa formally introduced myself, my name is Margaret Silva and I am the General Manager of Robert Louis Stevenson Museum. I take care of the daily operation of the museum. And I'm so grateful and very thankful that I work in a place that is so peaceful and very beautiful. So I would like to take you all inside on a tour of the Robert Louis Stevenson Museum. So everyone, please follow me. I'll show you inside the museum.
Yeah, pe na mai mo mai I vaaiga a matale nei e to tonu o le si o manga pe falling o se siapo. O lo si o mia ai le mauta a le potu mo le nei e fa felo e foi. Ia le mamalo le tātou no ia le atuatu ia Margaret ia tu mai sina fa amtalanga le nei potu ta ua male au le lei. Ia le ua momori mai o United no foi America, Australia, New Zealand. Fe la volta fa lang. Ia le ua maua mai le nei aso fa Margaret.
Well everyone, this is the tapa room or the smoking room of Robert Louis Stevenson. Well, before he came to Samoa in the late 1889, he was a very sick man. He had lung problems. A lot of people think he had tuberculosis, but it still hasn't been confirmed. Because if he had tuberculosis, I don't think he will last for 44 years. Stevenson died at the age of 44. And plus tuberculosis needs a dry climate. This is not dry climate, this is very humid. So there's no proof that Robert Louis Stevenson had tuberculosis. What's recorded within his death certificate, and we have it upstairs in his library on his table, he died of apoplexia, which is a brain hemorrhage and a stroke. And that's what Robert Louis Stevenson died of. He lived in Samoa for 4.5 years, suddenly passed away here. He's buried in Samoa, right at the top of the mountain called Mount Vaia, and it's just beside the house. So everyone, as I said, this was his smoking room. Yeah, so even though he was very sick, but he had his own smoking room, and also referred as his dining room. He could have a cup of tea with his friends and families. Ia se vaenga matamofia na nei potu. Ia o taua potu laula toina. Ia ai manai ale tapa o design ailo na potu. Ia well tapa, as we all know, for Samoans around the world watching this live here, yeah, there used to be our clothing back then, made of the inner bark of the mulberry paper tree. But Stevenson had this idea of making it as a wallpaper to design this room, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Yeah, we have his family photograph here. He brought his whole family out here with him, and the photograph was taken in the year 1892. Tasi valui valuana puena inea tailumol Fale Robert Louis Stevenson. So you can see it's decorated with the coconut leaves because the photo was actually taken during his birthday. So they had to design the house and decorate the house for his birthday. So this is Robert Louis Stevenson. His name is Tusitala. Samoans call him Tusitala because he's a writer of stories or storyteller. This is his wife, Fanny. She's American, 10 years older than Robert Louis Stevenson. They never have any children. But Fanny, his wife, had 2 children from her previous marriage. And they both came to Samoa. So this is Fanny's daughter, Isabel. All right. And that's her son there. His name is Lloyd. Now, Isabel, she was married in the States before she came. So she came along with her husband. So we have her husband on the other side here. His name is Joe Strong. And they had a son. His name is Austin. Well, Robert Louis Stevenson came with his mother. So this is Robert Louis Stevenson's mother, Margaret Balfour Stevenson. And she came along with her maid, yeah, and the maid only lived in Samoa for 3 weeks, went back because she didn't like the climate at Samoa. She said it's too hot for her. If you're wondering which part of Australia, if there's any Australians watching this, she was from Tasmania, and that's very cold. But if you look at the photograph, look at the way they dressed back in the days, with the long collars and long sleeve. Oh boy, that must have been very hot. Now, people around them, just the locals or Samoan people, those people work for Robert Louis Stevenson's family, and Robert Louis Stevenson treat them as his real family. After Robert Louis Stevenson died, his family all went back to the States, where his wife is originally from, except for Robert Louis Stevenson's mother. She went back to Scotland. So nobody stayed here. The house was sold after 6 months, and it was sold to a very wealthy German trader. His name is Gustav Gunz. Now, Gustav Gunz, he was also an architect, a very famous architect. When he first came and he saw the house, he said, the house is unfinished. It's designed like a bird. So the center part of the house is the body of the bird, and it's got a wing on that side, but missing the other wing on this far side here on my left. So he said, I want to make history here. I'm a big fan of Robert Louis Stevenson, so I'm going to finish it off for him. So Gustav Gunz added the other wing of the house, and that's how the house is complete today. In 1900s, we were colonized by the Germans. Governor of Germany lived in this house. When the Germans lost the war, British took over. New Zealand managed to take over Samoa. So High Commissioner of New Zealand also lived in here. Samoa gained independence in 1962 from New Zealand. It became the official residence of our head of states, His Highness Malietoa Tanumafili II. Malietoa lived here until it was badly damaged by the 2 major cyclones we had in 1990 and 1991, Cyclone Opha, Cyclone Belle. It was left damaged for nearly 2 years. And sadly, our government back in that time did not have the funds or the money to restore this place. So their decision was to put it on lease. Remember, their first priority were our people, our infrastructure. So that's why they decided to put this on lease. An American wealthy businessman, a very big fan of Robert Louis Stevenson, he used to be a Mormon missionary here in Samoa in the late 1950s. His name is Rex Mon. Now Rex, he came back to Samoa, leased 29 acres from the government, funded the whole restoration, and that's how it became a museum. And it was officially opened as a museum in 1994. Rex spent nearly $5 million to restore this place. He still spends a lot today because of the maintenance of this home, right? But people's admission that they paid to go and visit the house, our events that we have on the lawns, that helps us with the daily operation of the museum, but it's never enough. But thank God for Rex Mon, because if it wasn't for him, I don't think this museum would ever exist today. We wouldn't have a beautiful museum, and we'll never get to meet all of those people come here every day. So that's the tapa room or the dining room of Robert Louis Stevenson. All right, I've got more rooms to show you, so we're going to go upstairs, so stay tuned. All right, so we'll be heading upstairs. It's quite a big house, so everyone. I mean, I wouldn't mind here living here myself, you know, with the nice breeze and the nice air you breathe every day, you know.
Yeah.
Right? Won't you look at that beautiful view?
Yeah.
It's a very peaceful place.
Ai mai lai le pito le o ko se matango feel VAAIGA tule nei lunga mai lona mauta le nei. Anga ele tati e mai le loto au le leile te mai mo mai ai. Le wo moli sa o tu lava I lo mauta mo lo lawa. I le fea lava le te whao le larolangi o lo e mai mo mai ai. Yeah. Ai o se mai le la wha awol tato tua.
All right, everyone. Gotta show you the mountain where Robert Louis Stevenson is buried. Right at the summit of that mountain. It usually takes about 30 to 40 minutes one way to go up there. So that's like an hour for both way. So the walk is for free, so you can do that whenever you like it if you come and visit us in Samoa. All right, this side here, this is the wing that was added by the German trader who bought the house from his wife after his death. All right, so we have our storeroom there, and we also have the administration office. But I'll take you inside the original house. So we're heading this way, please. Right, looking out there, you'll see a little white house there, that little white cottage. That's where their kitchen used to be. So a separate kitchen like our Samoan way of life. We have separate kitchens. That's European style. Back in the days, they have separate kitchens. But it's good to protect the house from fire. Yeah, so it's a good idea. Yeah, around his house and his home, there were a lot of plantations. So they had banana plantation, vegetable gardens, and they also had a very big pineapple plantation. And I'll show you some of the photos when we get to it. But I'll show you his library, so come in.
Oh. E ala sisi le mai, he le pito le amatatuai. E le mai maunga le library nei. A le tustala, o ka se matangofi. Oi, le sila VAAIGA matangofi le iei nei. Sisi le mai. Ela tuatia Margaret.
Yeah, this is Robert Louis Stevenson's library, everyone. Also his study room, and bedroom, because he sleeps here most of the time, and that's why we have the reproduction of his bed on that corner. He wrote 13 books in Samoa for 4.5 years he lived here. That's like one book for 4 months, all done by hand. There were no computers or typewriters back in the days, so that's very prolific if we think about it. Most of the famous books, you've probably heard of Treasure Island, Kidnapped, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Those were all written before he came to Samoa. He was already a famous writer before he came to Samoa. Now you think about it. Out of all the countries that Stevenson traveled to, why Samoa? A little dot in the map. So I'm very amazed because he's been traveling all around the world and he came and chose Samoa. First, he said the climate makes him feel better because of his sickness, or he had that lung problem. And second, he said Samoa is very friendly. Very friendly, and he loves our culture. It's different to him because it gets a lot of ideas for his writings. That's why he wrote 13 books for 4.5 years he lived here, everyone. So it's very amazing. Not only he wrote 13 books, he wrote a lot of poems for children.
Yeah.
He wrote a lot of letters,
Sure.
prayers. So everyone, it's very prolific if we think about it. Now, most of the pictures and informations in this library were all donated by big fans of Robert Louis Stevenson all around the world, especially the chairman of the board, and that is Rex Mon, who funded the whole restoration for this museum. Right, so you'll see a lot of copies of his books and also his original books. We have first editions here of the three best-known tales he wrote: Treasure Island, Kidnapped, Dr. Jekyll, and Mr. Hyde. I believe those books made him very famous all around the world. Treasure Island has already been translated in the Samoan language. It's called Motu o Oloa, by Dr. Aiono Fanahafi. And here's a look of that book. Right? It's very nice to have a Samoan copy for our children, and we will be very happy to translate many of his other books because they're very good book for very educational book for the children. So hopefully we will have somebody other than Fanafi to translate more books for our children in Samoa. But you can see here in this shelf, there's about 29 different languages in here of Robert Louis Stevenson's books, translated by many different people in many different countries. Right? That tells us how famous Robert Louis Stevenson in the world. 29 countries. That's a lot of countries. So we have Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Hebrew, Dutch, Danish, Polish, Russian, Samoan, oh, you name it. It's all in here in this shelf. All right, so that's the library of Robert Louis Stevenson. All right, there's more rooms. So everyone, we're going to go to his wife's bedroom, and her name is Fanny, and we have a photograph of Fanny on the wall here. A very beautiful woman. Now remember, I mentioned she's American from San Francisco, California. Right. Now her room is built with California redwoods. Oh, my California. Yeah, the most expensive timber in California. Why? It doesn't have any problems with termites. And that's why it lasted very long. So this has been here for more than 100 years. Wow. Still strong and solid. And actually, we polish it every end of the month. So I don't want to think about polishing today. So tomorrow is polishing day, everybody. So everyone, you see it's a beautiful room. You'll see her traveling trunk or the luggage back in the days. Now imagining carrying this trunk today on the plane with you. Now that will take all your kilos, just the trunk itself. But then remember, they carry these on the ship or the boats back in the days.
Margaret, e whaasile te lawa tūlanga lea. O le mai tau atu I la e tu mai e. O ni la e na iai lava mai le teimi lea?
Ia, o la e ia. O la e ngau Fanny sa iai. O iai e teimi nei. Ai ole al tato la e la le lo itu mai le whatangata. Ia ole la e la o se kopi o se o la ole fōringa wa aia la o la e Fanny o lo ingo ole ato pau lea po le ato lea tu wai la e o for Fanny. So she's got a very nice sewing machine.
Ui, sa whai an sui-suinga
inga. Sui-suinga, ia.
Manea
te lo ato mai tangata Samoa, so a lot of photos of Samoan people. And we can see in some of the photos, the ladies, they were topless.
Yeah.
Sa leini la e lungo tatu tangata o
Samoa.
Tene Samoa, yeah, so la yeah, until the arriving of the missionaries, yeah, that's when everything started to change. Wa amatai lo na fai ofo tatu tangata. Yeah, when Fanny and Robert Louis Stevenson arrived in Samoa, they were still ladies or females, Samoan ladies that were topless. And when they had the ladies to work for the family, Fanny actually sold them uniforms. So tell you lama na su'i Fanny ala totoninga. Aya whainga winga telu tangata Samoa I totono nei whai. Which is very nice of her to do that for the Samoans. Now tele lava o furnitures le totono whale nei, o furnitures e whaafolinga o Maimoaga Robert Louis Stevenson. So these are not the original furnitures, but based on that period of time, and mostly these were all replicas based on the original furnitures. Now many people coming to visit the museum now, they said, what's the point of having your museum if you don't have most of the originals? Because that's what people want to see in the museum. Now let me tell you why it's very important to have our museum without the originals. Now first and foremost, we have Robert Louis Stevenson's bones, and they're at the top of that mountain, which is the owner of this place and the creator of this house. This is the only home that was built by Robert Louis Stevenson. All right. Fanny, his wife, is also buried in Samoa together with Robert Louis Stevenson. His history is very much alive in Samoa. It's a history that we all must learn, because he was very much involved in the Samoan politics. He did a lot of great things for our people. And that's why we have this museum here. So even though we don't have the originals, but we have a strong history in this house, right? So that's why this museum is very important for all of us. Not just for Samoans, but for everybody all around the world to come and join and share together this beautiful history, so that our children can grow up and learn about the life of this very famous author.
Especially alum whanau le tunu I whafu no le ele o malamalama.
Ele o malamalama ile talaanga Robert Louis Stevenson. So to have this here, you were moi for elato le avanoa e learn the history of Robert Louis Stevenson. You know, so we could take them, you know, back in time. Yem whaai loa iai le taua fo yo nei talaanga whasolpito le ngate tono tato atunu. Ia e me se fo yo watunu I whafu.
E la lisi potu.
Yeah.
Ja, wa ngai tanto Maimoaga. Ja, wa ave o te tono lisi potu. Before me se potu mai Margaret.
Yo potu ne potu o tenio Isabel por tamatenia Fanny. So you can see it's a very beautiful bedroom owned by Fanny's daughter Isabel. Now remember the first photograph I showed you in the first room. She came with her husband and her son. Now Isabel didn't last with the husband in Samoa because he was a very alcoholic man. Yeah, faya sina fale tono le amio to ina ya. Olela mafuanga ya hoteli foile le no pio tama loa ya o ye nai vesinga la iti ya. So fo ilola yo Joe Strong I America. Ya ona to fai pui poi lo Joe Strong yo ya Isabel malantam tama Austin they lived here.
Le vedi si la sui ne?
Yeah, another sewing machine. Yeah, well, I think this is what they do back in the days. They sew, they write, they paint, they read. Yeah, well, TV. Yeah, so now,
yeah.
TV, lengi, laptop, lengi, yeah. Umana ia peo meia sa fai la so to keep them occupied. Alright, yeah. So sila mai le.
Yeah.
Uri malala ya so la. Yeah, mali atupa unai. Avea la tu lava ia pea ona oi. Moa po ni fa moi. Inisio.
Yeah. Manatu le man tu inisio le au matu tu le mai mo mai. Ia audi malala ne ta fole ting popo fo ile. Margaret ia ona failo le audi le. Ina failo le masoa fo le fa maloi.
Fa maloi fa.
Io lo ia ma audi. Ia le foto ato eva ai le foldinga. Wa nisi audi lata mai. Le ato le moa fo le mai lokai. O le toa sa moa fo ile. So Ia, te whaamanatu mai ia vaaiga mātango fia le tātou tunu. Ia, soifua ua o loo soifua pēa ia nisi o ta mamatina mātutua. Ia, e mana tua nei mea.
Ia. Matatua ngai atu le potu o le tina Robert Louis Stevenson. O lona swafa o Margaret Balfour Stevenson. Ia, sila mai le au le o le potu o matua.
Ia, ma se mai mo mai tātou. Au mai mo fo le nei tu aso. E fulinga la le lei o le potu le nei. E mata tu si ai dei tu tonu nei. O painting yaso la.
Ioi. Ia tātou mantua Christopher Columbus. Ilenga discover inga America. Ia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he doesn't have anything connected to the museum or has anything to do with the museum. But it was donated to the museum. A very nice portrait.
Yeah. Sisila mai tu e ngā moenga ia. O lewa iei tua toi whausia ne le larolangi tu e ngā moenga whaapea.
Ioi.
Matau
toi au mai whausanga yaso lai toi whai e moenga yaso
Matau ngata alola. A wa whausanga mai yaso ana mua.
Ioi.
Yeah.
Yeah, sila mai le ata no tua. Yeah, that's Margaret or Robert Louis Stevenson's mother. These two photos taken in Honolulu, Hawaii. Yeah. Watana lua na puena I Honolulu, Hawaii. Ia male late king of Hawaii pole. Tupuna Hawaii. Il mai te me tasi Vailima. Olo I Robert Louis Stevenson. Ia malona to olua Fanny. Ia fa poi malon tina lo le autafa. Ole tupu. Ia o lato ainga fa ma vaina male ainga ile ia ngai mai nei Samoa. So a very big feast, a lot of food, you just don't know which plate to choose from.
Margaret e iwa inga ie pe e tō sina ile. Sisila mai fwede I pusa I asola. E iei pusa whapesa I ei fwile di asola. Le whatu ato e wa ia nisi o pusa ia. E I tu tonu nel Fale Mataaga. O isati. Ia male moli matang.
Ia mole
Moli matang.
Kalsingi
Moli kalsingi de
matang ia. Ia le o iei tama fo inga pe moli.
E se moli pensili, al moli matangi la.
Matangi, ia.
Amala ia fe avea I vole fe ama solo mala malama.
Oh. Yo malama ia tele le au matutua. Ia pe o matou nei fe ola mai wa iei tama o moli ngalkia palaka ola lo.
E pe moli esa fai e a matou. Ia sasi do poto.
Ia, esi potu lea, ia potu lea le tama Isabel, ia po o le grandson Robert Louis Stevenson. Yeah, but the little boy that we saw in the photograph downstairs. Yeah, mana for now all these colors, these are all original colors being repainted.
Okay.
Yeah, sa ang may fapito ale tangata le fa ngame fo ina yo microscopy oi America. Esu ale ya lanu molfale. Yeah, amazingly we found all the original colors. And we had to repaint it all over again, which is very amazing. Mana ya asolai takele vaani. Ai longa ngai lang mana fa pia. Ya ta foldinga va ai ne or fali la so.
And it seems a flat color.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice colors.
Tango fia va ai o pusa tu nei. Ya. O mea Maho I mai lava ia soana mua. E du toi mai mua mai ili tātou tunu uma le lanolangi o Samoa. O loa lalam papa au ia tunu I fafo. Ia sila mai. Te tū langa iai. Ia.
Ia lo iai na iata ia soana. Mai mua mai ia. Tātou lo mai mua mai fafo. Ia le ata leo le fali. So that's the original house. Ia tova ai ole ona tonu leo fale ia male pito lea tate ia vai le taimi nei ia o lesi apa o le fale po lesi wing o le fale ia ole ana toi fa popo e le siamani le ana fa taua mai le fale ia to olua Robert Louis Stevenson.
Margaret o leva le tusi mai nisi o lo mai mo mai fia fo ile ele fa salong tu sa lang in fa manat mol moli tu le la man tu
moli tu le maua mai fafo le
mo mai
tele
fafo ia fa malo fa te tu tato tino fa manatu mai vai
ia wa nga fo ia wa a fai nisi tua I tono fale ma ame tato tangata Samoa ia le fo wa ulo le mori tu ma mori tasi ma ia wa ia pe
mori matangi
ma mori matangi ia o se va ainga ngai le wafu that's Abia Harbor o te lope uma o lumo Eki Grace nga ia le atana
ele o mo le tau sanga le ata
le mo le tau sanga o te longa o le tau sanga o tasi balbal wiva langa vai te mi uma Robert Louis le iatane o le lefo e tau te mai atu lau papa mumu le na mai California mo le fale le so tal no mai le tasi balu wiva spulu lo i le ata le le na fausi le fale le vai te na ia o le ata le o le onga tonu le fale le ana fau mua lava ia o le tama I fale le tua mai ia o le mukukanga le ainga po la kitchen le ana fasino atu I fafo o le fale tonga fale lua la titi lea o le fale le sa fauina le ainga I se me lava o tua le fale o nasa no foi le ainga o fausia le fale te le nei pe se me tau na mapu atu ai ma mana no foai
e se foi falling al fingol moenga le makrete le mai tawat e si la meta to tino e se ta inamu foi le mai lo
yo le potu mai gas to ina Robert Stevenson for the hospital when he doesn't feel well he comes in the hospital ele yasana for mai so his wife Fanny took care of him yes well Fanny she's a practice doctor study a lot about medicines yo mai le kele o medicines take care ile inga ile ngata foi le ngai tangata Samoa samana mi so ani la mai time
Margaret le wa ye initial tustusi mai wa fia o mal no fanga ne o te mia te tala ya lava a si o mal no fanga
ka te tai ya le la fatali atu mo to ole ya tata sipse foi le pitole le pen la le po ya sola ya sa fa o hai tanga tamatu yo te lo me foi la sa fa o le po Matau ele o yaini fale le ta o poni fale o itono le fale. They were all separate from the main house. So at night, fa mala le ainga ia mato bed pants la. Ia pe o fale wina le ainga la. So sa ia me o lato fale ele ia so la.
O le mai ta watu Margaret. Ele mai moanga fa ta amilo I pontu ia wa mai E pe folinga mai o le ia se so tanga. O tu manga mai atu nuu na malanga mai le li tustala. Mala ata o tu manga fa Samoa. E peila le mukuka.
Yes,
e fa se fa fa mate tonu. O fale foi. Ele o yese fale ui foi le po fale ta ele tu lou fa fa mai le atu nuu. I tu tonu le fale. A le fa usia fale fa fo le so ta inga le male anga nuu fa Samoa. O le pe tu fa tasi nei. Ia ona loa ila o lea ia ile angangol tustala I Samoa ma. Nana sotanga, mata mo fia. Ma lisi me mau fai, o le umi fia se fulu tau sanga. O tu mau lava fōringa nei o mea ni malo na malo si au.
Ile ai ma se swinga. O tu langa uma fo ile o lato furnitures po lato mea fali. O no titilo uma yata, original photos. Yo mea lavana tuai mai la. Tau sanga o mawai, o lea tuai a tato mea fale. Le isa swinga. Yo o lanu lava nei o le fale na iai mai teine o Robert Louis Stevenson. O te lopa wal swinga lawa iai nei o tungala au. Sa iai tungala au a Robert Louis Stevenson sa iai ai pe o tele o na tō
tele la
leia ati.
Le wale swinga au le lei tele le wai iai.
Ia ma o aso fo ilai le se malai te lea Robert Louis sa iai lumo lo fale. O lana malai kiki sa iai ia ma sa o lai tele o la au fo ia. Ia pe tai ia leo fa mata mo fie wa ave ese le tele o la au ia ai fa tu mai lava le fanua au le o lo o iai. Ia fa mata mo fie ati le fanua.
Ia wa pe le mena le sa mai mo le laro langi o sa mo le mai mo mal te mine. O le amatanga mai lumo le tongala au ma neia. e toi whaamanatu atua i le si o manga Samoa lava i e tua whale ma tua maoto ainga. E le vainga le awala le angai mai. Whelanu lanu mai o la au Samoa lava lato. E le mate mei nisi o manu le tunu e pe o lau tanitangi. E o lau talutano.
O te lofo o le sina mafua anga na alai o na piki ina Robert Louis Stevenson le nei location po nei no fuanga. O na le mana o le te o le la au pe o me le o mai tangata mai fafa e mai se lava tu risi e o mai e ofu le au le o tonga la au o le whelana noa i o lango o funga la au ia me se tato la au o si o mia i tato i o nei mea manatu mama i te lo Samoa ia e pe ta i le lalo lango e se ma le patawa ia la tau i o la au ma mea o si o mia i tato
Margaret, whaaftei tele. A ole e anga e whao maina i le nei whaasalalong tu sa o Maimoaga i a Samoa i le lorolangi te 5 year o lo Maimoaga mai ai. Ai o lea so fina ngalo o ani me te mo e mo tatu tangata Samoa e te wana tu nei Fale Mataaga le nei i Vailima e li tu stala. O ani vaenga na mie so ani mai ai ia pe whaalau i loa tu fo i wale o Maimoaga mai. Ia mau e foi le tala fa solo pito nisio me le umana mana mai al to tele to fa mi se ve yalom fa nau a o tu fa lata tu Samoa io la tu tafa o ia lockdown te mine fa mai
io
e ne so no nisi va
ia fa tai lava ia mo se fia tato mamalo Samoa lo mai mo mai ia temi nei se temi fa na tala va nei po se temi very challenging time mo le Mataaga nei ia no sila fia o le ini tu risi wa tapuni malava alele i tene na o mai tangata ia wa lata fo i whai mo tausanga o mai aswenga whanau ia wa le ini si o mai mata i Mataaga nei ia o lo mana amia lava sosoania tato tangata mai fafo whatever donation to te mawhai am sosoani mai nei Mataaga ina ia umi ma whaalelea i pia le nei Mataaga ia wata to tangata mai mua mai fafo le ngata i lea o le whaatu mawina pia o le nei talaanga whaasolopito mo tato ngalom whanau o lo tuputupu ai ia o le alava sip sosoani mwhaiona tau au e tato tangata i fafo mo lato o lo fief sosoani mai ia talia ma le anganga whaafitai le taipe paulava nao sen me o lo o mana mia ele Mataaga Jamie nei ia whaingata lava Jamie nei o le tele mau me whai o tau whai fo le tele o fundraising se whai ia e peitai ia ele na o museum o lo a fia la langi toa ia pa ia mea lana pa lava mea le whai o no fo talo ina ia uman nei whama ia tato toi wheloa e male fia manuia
o lo whaatai whaamalo mai le anu Samoa o lo Maimoaga mai te 5 year le lorolangi ni aso Margaret ai manatu atono se temi ona whaalawi lole le awala e lafo mai e fiso aswani ngai mai ia le vua e whaalawi lo vaenga ia e toi whaale leim whaatu mawina i pele Mataaga i lona tūlanga tū mau ia wā Maimoaga se temi te tala lava malanga mai tātu o tunu i Samoa o mai lo toi whaalau tele ma se i pai ai o lewa o mata sao ai o lewa tā a mai e tu tonu le whale ma wha mata atu ia i lātou ai toi hare pai e tangu fwile e mori mawina ne matango fia i o talaanga Samoa ia ai mole te minei mako te whaaftei tele mole awa noa mai le tautua a le siufonga le laumua Wellington e New Zealand ia tu sa o anto ele nei Polokalame Maimoaga i vanga ese o le tātua tunu a o iai ia i puinga o le whaamai o COVID-19 vai mai se ia tunu mau o Samoa o lo tu mau pere tūlanga saonga le mu tau sia ia ai mo le te minei Margaret whaatei tele mo le usao whaatei tele mo le awa noa ai whaasoi fuia
whaatai lava